Welcome everyone to July 16th, and it is Gene Key 62, and we have some huge astrological events happening for the last part of July. So I'm going to weave together three themes. And I want you to listen from the perspective of your call to action. This is call to action time. We are highlighting the Aries North Node. And Aries action is bold. It takes huge leaps. It's courageous. It steps into its leadership and it acts. So that's the context. We've had a lot of Aries energy. If you can remember back to March and the new moon eclipse and the solar eclipses, we had Aries energy that was really initiating us in a cycle change. Remember, right around the equinox, that was this astrological new year that said, okay, everyone, 2023, we are on a completely new plane. We're in a new reality. And this year has been themes of the same. Lots of letting go opportunities, but right on the heels of the letting go is the new, the cycle change of the new. So whereas a couple years ago, it was just like letting go and no new, we're in this quick, like letting go and new, letting go and new, letting go and new. And really when Pluto steps fully into Aquarius after this retrograde cycle, as Pluto goes back to Capricorn, just to revisit again, the structures that need to fall, we're going to be sailing, and really sailing is going to feel like jumping off of a cliff. We haven't seen anything yet. We haven't felt that kind of feeling yet, where the ground underneath us just evaporates. So it's a time to learn how to get grounded on the inside. There won't be that many places to ground on the outside. And so humanity is evolving very quickly and massively, and hold that context too. Hold it in a way, and this is what I'm really getting present to as I study this, that we've never been through this. Yes, humanity has been through wars and plagues and all kinds of shifts, right? In the axial age, where humanity started to wake up with Christ and Lao Tzu and Buddha, and just these teachers sprouting everywhere, that was a new cycle. And like that, we're going into another new cycle, a new axial age, but it's not one that we've seen before. And that's why it feels so different. And it indeed is different. And the flavor and the color and the texture of how it's different, we are going to experience. There isn't a book that's going to tell us about this. There are prophecies, there are channels, but we have to live this in a body. So listen for your part, listen for your call to action, as we know that we have just set out on a journey. So imagine that there's a journey ahead of us, and we have some inkling about what it is, but it's new. So listen for your call to action here. So the three things that I'm weaving together will be this nodal change. So the nodes every 18 months shift. And the North Node is that soul learning. Where are we going? What do we need to learn? What are we longing to learn? That's the North Node. That's in your own chart. Each of you has a North Node and a South Node in your own birth chart. And then we have the North Node of the planet. Where are we all collectively going? So that's really going to be part of this talk, because we've already entered in in some ways, and we're entering in like the date of that entry is in a couple days. So we're really in the frequency of changing the nodal axes. The second thing we're going to weave through is where the gene keys are today. Gene key 62 is in the shadow of intellect. That's a shadow frequency, and the gift of precision and the city of impeccability. So I'm excited for that because it gives our words, our understanding, some gravitas today. And I pray to get out of the way enough for that to come through. And then the third thing that we're going to weave today is called the third force. This is Gurdjieff's third force. I've known it always as the third way. I've experienced it, and I just listened to Cynthia Bourgeault talking about the third way. And so that felt very apropos to some of the challenges that we're going to be facing inside of ourselves and in relationship with others. We're going to need a third way. So let's start on this journey, and let's start on the journey with, let's start on the journey with astrology. Let's presence what's going on right now. There's a lot to say, and there's a lot of videos out there, so I'm going to highlight, and then you can dig deeper if you choose to. The new moon happens tomorrow in Cancer. Some of you may already be feeling that. The new moon in Cancer is the Cancer being a water sign, an emotional sign, a sign of family and nurturance and self-care. And there's so much going on that we don't get to just purely experience the new moon in Cancer, because the energies of the last half of July are freaking intense. They're dynamic, they're impactful. And so when we know this, we get to use that to align ourselves, because it's kind of like saying the river is flowing this way. Why don't you flow this way? And that it will do the heavy lifting for you. So we have a cardinal grand cross, and we know that those grand crosses are these just intense oppositions. Pam Gregory says that we're being squeezed evolutionarily. So yeah, let's take our medicine, right? Because it's not personal. We're not personally being squeezed because we're bad or we're fucked up or we're wrong. No, we're being squeezed because something completely new is wanting to come through. And for those of you who have had a baby, you've felt that bearing down contraction that has to happen for that baby to get delivered. So what Pam Gregory says, and this is a good context to hold even this whole conversation, and that is that you're going to have that vice grip tightening, and you get to make choices. And the choices are going to be fear or love, victim or creator. So listen to your words. Today, we're in the frequency of words. We're in the frequency of language. Gene Key 62 is the language of light. So are you bringing light through your words, or are your words showing you, mirroring to you the old paradigm, the old you, the you who felt victimized by life? It's not fair. I shouldn't be here. The world shouldn't be that way. I'm not welcome. I don't belong. Whatever flavor of ice cream your particular brand of self-talk, we get to understand that and make new choices and make them in language, not as an override or a Pollyanna, but as a real choice. Are your words creative or are they not? That's what we get to choose. I mean, they are creative, but and if we really believe that, would we say half the stuff that we say? So this is another wake-up call inside of this cardinal grand cross, where it's just not playing games. And part of what's lit up here is, of course, Pluto in retrograde, squaring the north nodes. And then we're soon going to have Venus, the planet of love, resources, money, going retrograde in Leo. Now, that may mean nothing to you until you know your chart, but just suffice it to say that there's a lot happening. And Pam Gregory said this, and I was so glad she said this, because it was a little bit like my training in Kundalini yoga, where the teacher would say, do this every day, do this every day. And somebody added up like all the things that someone said to do every day, and it basically took a week. So there's no way to do all those things in a day. And what Pam Gregory said about astrology is that there are 3,000 things to look at in your natal chart that make up your life, that make up your experience. They're part of your blueprint. And that does not include these transits that are happening. Transits are things that are happening right here and now. Your natal chart is your blueprint of how you came in. What's the constellation when you came in? And the art form is to know how to interpret that. That's the art form. Same with the transits. There are things happening as planets move close together, and then they'll part. And so when that closeness comes, there's an action that happens. There's an energetic field that's created. And so we feel it. But the 3,000 gives us a kind of an idea that there's a ton of them. So we can't get too attached. These are just pointing to energies so that you can understand the big picture of what's happening. So where we get to begin in this journey today is the shift in the nodal axes. And Rosanna talked about this on our call for astrology in the membership for the beginning of July. And you can go back and listen to that inside the portal. Her call for August, I believe, will happen on the first Saturday in August, but confirm that inside of the membership portal. They're so good that I highly recommend attending them and attending them live if you can. So this radical shift, the nodes go backwards. So they're always in a retrograde. We've been in the Taurus North Node and the Scorpio South Node. That's why all this crud has been dug up from the past, right? That's why the secrets have come to light, because it's the South Node. And Scorpio represents the depths. It represents secrets, poisons, all kinds of really bizarre, dark things coming to the surface. Taurus represents our sensuality, our beingness in a body, our values. What is it that we care about? Who are we and what is it that we care about? That's simplistic, but that gives you an idea of the axes points. So we're moving away now that we've discovered in this 18 months, what is it that we value? And I know for me, that's happened. My values have shifted. And I was walking with a friend the other day and I'm like, I'm not even the same that I was like last month. And we were all saying like how much we can't even imagine how we've changed in the last few years. Can anybody relate to that? How much have you changed? Like every hand is going up. Yes, we have changed so much. And it just happened. We didn't have to try because we're in a dance with life. And life is changing us. Consciousness is evolving and awakening. And one thing I get to presence at this moment is a little, public service announcement, which is no gains in consciousness are lost. That is huge. So hold on to that. No matter what is happening, it's worth evolving our consciousness. It's worth waking up because no gains in consciousness are lost. So this axis changed. Going back to that, now we were in Taurus, and the opposite of Taurus is Scorpio. Now we're shifting and we're in Aries, and the opposite of that is Libra. So I'm sobered by this, really sobered by this. And like anything, we're in duality. So we have the shadow and we have the light. And it's important to understand the shadow frequency of Aries so that we can make conscious choices to bring in the light. There's too much at stake to go on autopilot and to play dumb and to play like we don't know and to let you've done too much work really to let emotion, anger, frustration, irritation take you over. Those are going to happen because we're human, but we don't have to choose to let them lead or to take us over. So Aries, this is a bold sign. It's a cardinal sign. It's the initiatory sign. So if we ever needed another indication that we are moving forward into a new cycle, all we have to look is all the freaking Aries with the eclipse back in March, and also the equinox. And now we're in another Aries North Node saying, okay, cardinal, initiatory. We're going to start something new. And always Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. What happens is it begins with I am. I am. Here I am. You know, Pisces, that primordial ooze, the liminal space, the birth canal is that Pisces, Aries, it's on the scene. I'm here. I want to be seen. So all the work you've done to confront so many shadows, to get you to actually show up and to be seen. Congratulations. You did it. You passed the test. Give yourself a gold star right now. You passed the test. Truly. And so you are here as sovereign women. You are in the I am. I know who I am now. And that's going to continue to freaking anchor and evolve. And just imagine the rest of the world's going to catch up. For those people who have not been playing the spiritual game or the awakening game, they're going to catch up. And so we get to presence that the shadow can really be a problem. It can be a bully. It can be a jerk. The shadow can cause a lot of problems by saying, it's all about me. I don't care about you. I'm going to look at some of what she said. Yeah, the shadow, this is Pam Gregory's talking about anger, aggressiveness, selfish, and impulsive. So we're going to see more of that. We just are. And we're going to have to hold space. And that's where the third way is going to come in. And the gift and it is the bold action that you get to take. So now you know who you are. Now you've come through the portal with your values, not the values of your ancestors, not the values of your lineage, which could be the stories that they taught you to survive. And you've been doing the work. And now you know, or, and well, I don't want to say or because it's and the stories of shedding those, or the path of shedding those old stories happens continuously. And it's going to happen faster, right? So we still are going to do trauma work. We're still going to do healing work and clearing work. And we're still going to do empowerment work and sovereignty work, because we're going to hit faster the bumps against them. And we're going to be able to, I know what this is. I need to go in and meet it. It's another layer that wants to come off. And so just presence, like this is what happens in Earth School. It's not, we don't get to an arrival place. And if we do, then we're not even inside this teaching anymore. We're somewhere else. That's the city level. So we're here playing the game, going to the gift frequency. So we'll do it faster. We'll find the wounds inside faster. We'll know it. We'll identify that it's a story faster. will know where it's coming from. Oh, yeah, that was from my grandmother because she survived the Depression and she had these views that money doesn't grow on trees and that you have to work really hard and that you have to save all these things. And I'm going to take that from it because that sounds really wise. That sounds practical. And I'm going to leave that part of it because that sounds like it's from scarcity. And so you'll do the sifting and the sorting because you know who you are, because you know you have your sovereignty. You have a say in the matter. One of the things that Pam Gregory presents was like a channeled work from what's called the Nine. And I really liked what they said. And that was that there are old skins. The old skin of humanity is basically been peeled off. That's how new we're talking. So the South Node is our past. It's our collective past. And it doesn't like we will eventually hit the North Node in Libra, humanity will, because the cycle keeps allowing us to go around the wheel. But at this turn of the wheel, Libra is in the South Node. And so we will be dealing with our past lives, our past relationships. Venus in retrograde might bring some past relationships to your consciousness or to your, like, someone might call you from the past. Someone might show up because it's time to clear that old energy. So Libra represents our relationships. So you can see the juxtaposition is between the me and the we. And isn't it interesting that our future is not the we right now? The future is the me. So very, very interesting. And that comes with caution. The caution is we cannot forsake the we. The me gets to be fully self-expressed and alive inside of the we. So part of what Pluto in Aries and Aquarius is going to want to do is bring us into community. It's going to want to bring us into collaboration and into groups. And I think we're going to have completely different arrangements than we've ever had before. Maybe we're going to live in intentional communities. Maybe we're going to live on land with other people. So what does that show us? It shows me that we're going to have to learn how to get along. But we are not going to be able to do it from the way we've done it, which is how? People pleasing. Let me just keep the peace. How many of you have played the role inside your family of keeping the peace? You're a harmonizer. Well, good. That's awesome talent. And what the Aries North Node said is it will not ever come again at the expense of your truth. It just won't. It cannot. So that's sobering. That's going to require you and me to be ninja. We cannot be like, oh, I'll just default to my whatever, guys, whatever you want. I'll just suck it down and we'll do it. I'd rather just do it that way because Libra hates conflict. Anybody can relate to that? Not exactly loving conflict. Well, this is why the teaching of the third way is going to be really, really important for you. So we're not going to be able to do it like we did before. We're going to have to freaking show up and we're going to have to learn some new things. And part of it is, how do I be fully self-expressed? How do I be in my sovereignty? How do I be crystal clear about who I am and have boundaries in love, not push you away boundaries, but love you in, and here's what I know I can do. And we're going to have to truly work a yoga. Remember, yoga is union with, like two opposites. We're going to have to play this game inside of ourselves of unity, of the duality between us and them, or me and you. And there will be people on the world scene who do not know how to play that. So we get to be the third way, the force of the third way. And Cynthia Bourgeault yesterday, when I was listening to one of her talks on love, it was live, it was really beautiful. She talked about us being a midwife of the third way. And I love that, because since the Divine Feminine Summit, the very first one, I brought in the archetype of the midwife of transformation. And really, those of us who are mature and wise, and I believe bringing in Divine Feminine Shakti, are midwives. So perhaps your call to action that you could be hearing today is the call to action to be a midwife, to really own that mantle, because you already are that, but just to own that mantle. So let me see if there's anything I want to say. Yeah, so part of the Libra South Node is also going along with the system. So there's going to be many system changes coming. We still, and really until Pluto is fully in Aquarius, we're still breaking down the way things have been done. One of the things Pam Gregory said, and I'm really been contemplating this, and that is that, and she really likens it to Saturn in Pisces, really evaporating, erasing our memories. I thought that was fascinating, because the yogic tradition is not a fan of memories. They're not a fan of any subconscious stuff. That's why yogis get up before the REM cycle starts. So, teachers like the Dalai Lama gets up at like 3:30 in the morning, because that REM cycle where you dream and you have all of this baggage that you're dreaming, it's really your subconscious. That's how I understand, like, even why lucid dreaming is really important. And I've been with Andrew Holochek in the Tibetan Book of the Dead class, and he's talking about lucid dreaming, waking yourself up out of the dream. And so yogis have never been connected to the dream space to let your unconscious just off gas. It's been like, no, we need to interrupt this process. And so Pam is talking about how the memories are going to start to evaporate. And part of what I'm getting in that is that they're going to leave us because they're no longer relevant. How we did something will not be how we will do something. Now, even saying that, we have these teachings, like the teachings of Mary Magdalene, the teachings of Christ, the teachings of the mystics, that will, I believe, survive, because as Gene Key 62 really talks about, intellect, duality, mind in duality, doesn't realize that the equal and opposite is always true. But what the mystics knew is that it's gnosis. And we talked about that last week, gnosis, that spontaneous divine revelation. And I will say spontaneous, but not haphazard, to quote Adyashanti, because it is coming after practice and studying and contemplation. So remember, we talked about St. Bonaventure said there are 3 ways of knowing. There's reason, there's observation, and then there's contemplation, which really represents the feminine, the gnosis, the understanding that comes through sitting with it. And that really is profound practice for the Aries energy, because the Aries energy can be impulsive. But when we allow more space, and because there's a time to act for sure. And there's also, especially in conflict, a time to slow it down and get really present. So that brings me into the teachings of the third way. Now, the third way teachings, Gurdjieff calls it the third force. And it's not a compromise or a synthesis of two polarities. That's more in the old idea of compromise. And that's a very Libra idea, compromise. This is not that. So here we're taking a notion that Gurdjieff says has been in the cosmos since the beginning. And we're going to apply this to the new world instead of the old way. Like if you go into law or like marriage counseling, everybody in the old paradigm talked about compromise. Well, you can't have everything you want. You have to compromise. And we accept that. That's like an agreement, a consensual agreement that, oh, that must be true. And one of the things, and I was trained as a mediator. So one of the things that we heard was, if nobody's happy at the end of the mediation, you've done the right thing. Right? Because everybody feels like they lost something that was important to them. Wow. What a low bar. What an incredibly low bar. So there it is, right there in the shadow, Gene Key 62, intellect. That's the shit the intellect comes up with. I mean, think of all the things the intellect invented. Pesticide. Okay, great. Yeah, it did kill the bug, but it killed the plant and it polluted our ecosystem and it's killing us. And we still don't shut it down because we're ruled by intellect, the mind in duality. So the mind absent the heart, the intelligence. Now we know from heart math, and we know from our coherence work a couple of weeks ago, we know that coherence in the heart is coherence in the entire body, the embodiment of it. So heart is not this like love feeling, like that we have the syrupy, oh, I love you feeling. That is not it. Love is a dynamic force. And Cynthia Bourgeault says that you can see it in flow because love is inherently creative. It restores us to our capacity to create. And we will need the I am consciousness to know ourselves as creators. So if you declare yourself to be awake and a creator, then you will open up the portal to the third force. So the third force is made up of affirmation and denial, which is the yes and the no. Cynthia Bourgeault said, when you have a dissenter in your group, it's actually a good thing, because I didn't think of it that way. I never thought of it that way, because then now you have the poles and they're holding down these axes. And so what happens in that space? Well, we know already watching the world, we fight and we try to play tug of war, moving that flag that's on that rope over the line, back over this way, which to me has been presidential politics. Let's just have one party here, then another party, then another party. And so we've been yo-yoing it. So when are we going to wake up to realize that that game of tug of war is no fun? It does not move the ball. So we get to drop the rope. I'm not going to play in duality. I'm not playing it. So what's your stand? What's your call to action? So the teachers of the third force have said that we and humanity are third force blind. So just know that autopilot is third force blind. You're not going to get it naturally. You have to be a clearing for it. And what is the single biggest obstacle to seeing third force? Write down what you think it is. The single biggest obstacle to being third force. And here it is. It ties in with Aries North Node. Oh, we are in for some big spiritual teachings. Holy wow. The biggest obstacle to seeing third force, or the third way, is the identification with ego, the identification with the personal I, which is what it is. So, oh my goddess, we have our work cut out for us. So when we realize that, because first it takes that's just what egos do. So when we realize that that's what personality does, that's what ego does, then we get to witness it and be aware. And that witness and awareness already changes the field. And when we become present, remember, all the cities in the gene keys are all about being present. And when we come to presence, we become the clearing. When we hold the intention to be the clearing of the third way, then, and we become very present to it, we slow ourselves down. We beat at the pulse of the Schumann resonance. So we talked about that in prior videos. Then we start to entrain ourselves in something that wants to emerge. So what the third force always does, and this is how you know it's third force, is that it creates a fourth new way. So rather than in a mediation, two parties leaving really feeling like they didn't get what they wanted, and the other party feels like they didn't get what they wanted, and that being considered victory, what if the parties leave feeling incredible because they shifted their opinion, they shifted their position because they got at a deeper truth. One of my very close friends, I went to India with him. He managed the trip and had us meet the Dalai Lama about 20 years ago. He wrote a book called The Heart of Conflict. His name's Brian Muldoon. And he was a mediator, and he talked about this is what he would do. He would take these entrenched couples who are fighting over stupid shit like that painting. Because why do we fight over a painting? Because it's something else underneath that we really want, but we don't know how to articulate. And he would be able to get people to articulate what it is they really wanted. And by the end, and I remember this being an example inside of his book, by the end, they were like giving each other stuff. Here, you can have that. Here, you can have that. I don't need that. Oh, have a great life. Because they were present to the gratitude. And that was the fourth way that got created because Brian held a field for the third force, which is not a compromise. It is not a synthesis of the two. It is something that happens alchemically with affirmation and denial. It's called holy reconciling, holy neutralizing. And I'll presence too that Cynthia Bourgeois said these things, and it's my experience as well. It's not mechanical. So going back to Gene Key 62, it's not intellect. You cannot think your way through this. It's not mechanical. This is where your training in the divine feminine will come in handy. Your embodied presence will come in handy. She also said it's oftentimes counterintuitive. It's the thing that you don't think. So we're coming to a place, and I'm going to end with this because this has been a long transmission. There's so much to say, honestly, but this is good. Where we really have to trust ourselves. And we have to experiment, because trust is earned. It's earned with ourselves and it's earned with others. If your mind says, I don't know if I should trust you. Well, great. Let's put it to the test. Because no one's asking for, it's not magical. It's not magical thinking. We don't need that. So let's put it to the test. Let's develop integrity with ourselves. So if your body tells you something over and over and over, and you don't listen because you override it, and I'm talking to myself, I'm just you generally, and we don't listen, then what happens is the body starts to get sick. And then we go to the doctor to try to fix the illness on the outside. You see, like, that's intellect. That's Gene Key 62. And the city is impeccability. That is not impeccable, because at the end of the day, there's no integrity. The system doesn't have integrity. When I'm not believing myself and acting on what I know to be true, then I'm not testing. I'm not developing my faith. I'm not developing my muscle, and I'm not just seeing. So then I override it. And that overriding right there is the cause. It's the wound. So we're going to get good at testing our intuition, at testing and building trust with ourselves. Yes, I followed that. And at first it was a shit show, and then it opened up. So I'm kind of seeing now the pattern. I'm kind of seeing how this works with my truth. So I see it as a field. It's a field, and you are, by your intention, open the field. And by your intention, you get out of the way. So this paradox, let's end with this paradox. It's always good to end with the paradox. This incredible paradox of the I am here. I am fully sitting in my seat. I am sovereign over my life, that I have choice. And I'm also humble. And I'm also a servant of the imaginal energy, the cosmic energy that wants to flow through me. And really, it takes the I. My brain guy used to say, you have to be someone before you're no one. So this Aries I is allowing us the opportunity to claim this humanity, and at the same time, once again, die to the ego. It's really part and parcel of the same thing. And that's where the third way opens up. So let's gather all this positive energy that we have generated here and dedicate it to the merits, beaming it out across the planet to all sentient beings. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts. Namaste.